Right, so part two of the assembly of this top box. It's a little bit like an Airfix kit, to be honest. Today we're going to look at the assembly of the actual lock barrel itself, which really is quite straightforward. I did do a test run before I filmed it. I'm not really geared up for filming this kind of thing. I did find it a little bit awkward, so it might not be perfect. I've not reviewed the footage. To be honest, I'd had enough by the end of the day, so I just left it until editing on, what day will it be? Today, Wednesday. So yeah, that went according to plan. Now the fitting of the actual clasp mechanism onto the box, I did find a discrepancy in the Honda instructions. The Honda instructions, by the way, Honda changed the way they're doing this last year. If you remember, I got the GB350 and there was a little bit of paper with each one where you scanned a code, but when I went to the website from that code, there was nothing there. It had been taken down. Honda decided that wasn't really working, so they decided to put a new system in regime in place for downloading accessory fitting instructions for the bikes. You might need to ask your dealer for a link to that. If I can find it, I'll leave a link in the video description down below. So here we are, part two. You've already seen the review of the box. Part two is the building of the lock and the fitting of the clasp system to the box. Right, so what we're going to be doing now is just building up the lock barrel to suit the ignition key of your bike. You know, if you buy the kit and fit it yourself, you're going to be confronted with this. You know, if you get your dealership to do it, obviously you're not going to have to worry about it, but it comes with enough components so that if you want to you know, keep your top box and everything when you sell your bike to put on another bike, you've got enough here to build it up for you know, another ignition key. So what you'll find is you're going to have three little bags containing three different types of tumbler. So there's, you know, these are all the same. These might have got mixed up a bit, but you have three bags. Each one will have the same type of tumbler in them. Because there are only three tumbler combinations for the key. It's the key that actually sets the order of the tumblers. So you know, you've got an infinite number of combinations because you're going to be using 5 of these tumblers in the barrel itself. Now, in your kit, you'll also find a lot of these tiny little springs. There are also 3 black springs, but they're for your locking tumbler at the end, so we don't need to worry about that just yet. I've actually built this once and then stripped it down because I needed to sort of get in my head clear how it's all done. So I know these are actually all the right tumblers, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a couple up to show you how to do it. Really, this is just a matter of trial and error. Once you get your eye in as to how it works, you can identify if a tumbler doesn't work. You can identify which tumbler you actually do need, because they're all slightly different with the clearances at the bottom and the top. So you'll be able to judge, you know, which one to replace the wrong tumbler with. So it's actually quite easy and straightforward. When I first did this, it only took me 15 minutes to sort of work it all out. So it's not, you know, it's not a brain bender by any stretch of the imagination. What I will say, these are tiny, tiny, fiddly little bits. The first time I did it, I just did it with my fingers. You will need some fingernails, because if you've got no fingernails, you're not going to be able to do it. I'm using these tweezers simply because while I'm filming this, if I'm doing it with my fingers, you're not going to be able to see anything that I'm doing, because, you know, my fingers are bigger than the ignition barrel, the lock barrel itself. So I'm using these purely to make it easier for filming so that you can see what I'm doing. So what you'll see, you've got a little round hole in each one and a slot for your actual tumbler to go in. So taking the silver springs, and I've got loads of these. You've got enough to build 2 locks. Put them into the little circular barrels. Now what I'm going to do, we'll just do the first 2 first. And I'm going to mix these 2 up. So I mean, I've actually got these in order because I've just stripped it down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in the wrong order so you can see actually what happens. So you've got your little tab here, that engages onto the spring, so that needs to go that way. And this one goes the opposite way, so that tab engages onto the spring. So that's your first 2 tumblers in. What you need to do then is take your ignition key and insert it. Sorry, just push them down slightly. Take your ignition key and push it in, and then see how they sit. Now, as you can see there, hopefully, at the bottom we've got one sticking out. At the top we've got one sticking out. These should be flush. They should be flush with the barrel when the key's inserted, so that you're able to turn the key. These are effectively what locks it on the inside of the barrel housing, so that if you put the wrong key in, you can't, get it open. I'm really hoping you can see this. I'm going to have to do some work in post so that this is visible. So we know that those 2 are in the wrong place. This one is too tall, this one is too short. So when you take it, you're going to have to take your ignition key out. Take your ignition key out, but when you do that, just gently place your finger over the top, because remember now, these tumblers are spring loaded, so there is a possibility of them flying out. I mean, like I say, you've got plenty of spares, but you might need them in the future if you swap. If you swap your bike but decide to keep your top box, and you have to recode this lock for your new ignition key. Now, take that out. Like I said, this one was too short. As you can see there at the bottom, hopefully, we've got quite a large gap from the bottom. This is the bit here, this hole here is the bit that the key goes through. So you've got quite a big gap at the bottom before the bottom of the actual tumbler itself, and a small gap at the top. Now if we take this one out, as you can see, we've got an even bigger piece of metal at the bottom and a smaller piece of metal at the top. So that one goes into there. I'm going to just mix these up. As I said, this is a really fiddly job. It's not difficult, but it's fiddly. So slot that in, and then put your other one in. Remember, that goes the other way around. You do need a steady hand. And they're in there. So now we can try the lock again, the key again. And as you can see now, with the key inserted, the flush at the bottom and the flush at the top, and that's what you're looking for. Now, as I say, the first time I did this, I just did it by trial and error. I just kept, slotting new bits in until, something stuck and it worked. So, there's no need to bend your brain too much examining all these gaps to try and work out which one the next is. You've only got 3 different sets of tumbler. So if one doesn't work, one of the other 2 is going to work. So trial and error. It took me 15 minutes to work that out. So, right, so those first 2 tumblers are correct. Now I'll go ahead and build the rest of this. There's no point us sort of making this too long just for the sake of going over the same thing again. So you put your key, your spring in. Next tumbler in. Just making sure it's seated properly on the spring. Next spring in on the opposite side. Next tumbler in. I know these are right because, as I say, I've just stripped this down. Like that. And then your final one, final spring in there. I'm sticking to these tweezers a bit. As I say, if I was using my fingers, you wouldn't be able to see what I was doing. You know, these are tiny little components. Lots of scope for losing them, but Honda have put plenty of them in the kit. So if you lose one, it's not the end of the day. If you lose two, it's not the end of the day. So put your key in, and as you can see, they're all the correct ones now. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for them all being flush at the top and the bottom, you know, ready to fit the barrel into the barrel housing. Now, before you do that, the bottom tumbler is what they call a locking tumbler. This basically locks this barrel into the barrel housing. Otherwise, when you put your key in and pulled it out with it unlocked, the whole thing would just slide out. So it needs to be locked in place. And there are three of those. They give you three. So it's like I say, you know, it's not the end of the day if you do lose one or two, but obviously you want to minimise that as much as you possible. Now it needs a slightly stronger spring for the locking tab. And these are the black springs, and again, they give you three. These are the black springs in a separate bag. The springs that you do with the actual locking you know, the tumblers themselves, those springs are silver. These look like they're a slightly heavier duty spring. Cheese that out. These look like they're a slightly heavier duty spring. You know, I'm not sure of the reasons for that, but obviously there is a reason for it. So again, to withdraw the key, at the moment, these are going to pop up because they're spring loaded. So just put your finger over the top and take your key out. Otherwise everything will just go ping all over the place. So taking your black spring in that final slot, put that into the final round hole, and then put your locking tumbler into the final hole. Yeah, and as you see, there's quite a bit more power there pushing that up compared to the others. Yeah. Right, what it tells you to do next is grease up the barrel. So what I'm going to do, you get this little tube of grease with the kit. What I'm going to do is put the key in. You might need to press on that final tab to get the key all the way in, because obviously when it's inside there's pressure on it holding it into you know, into the actual housing, so it's not going to stick up as far once it's inside. And then we'll just put some of this grease on. And they say this is special grease. I'm not sure why it's special. Get a little bit into the tumblers, spread it around. Make sure we get it around that collar there as well. Wipe my finger. and that's ready to go into the housing. Now before we put it in the housing, we've got this piece. I'm not entirely sure what it's called. It will only go in one way. You'll notice there are two, let me just see, we've got that, yeah, right. There are two sort of wide open spaces and one narrow one. That part there, the little tab on it, goes into the narrow one. So I'll try and do that so you can see it. I actually had a bit of trouble getting this in and getting it to seat properly, although I haven't this time. So that's seated in there. And what that does is the back end of that engages on this piece here, which enables you to actually turn the lock. I'll just put a little bit of grease on that. I'm not sure whether it's needed, but... And that will only engage onto that one way because, as you see, we've got a little step here. Hoping you can see that. And that's got a similar step in it, so... Oh, I did have trouble with this first time getting it in. The thing is, the first time I didn't have that locking tab on the end, so I might have to cut a bit of this footage just to make it flow better. That's now come out. There we go. Oh, it's fallen out. Oh, back in again. Yeah. Yeah, it's that locking tab, which I mean that's what it's meant to do. Because this will only fit in one way. There we go. Right, no, that's come adrift again. So yeah, as like I say, it's a fiddly old lark is this. Let's bugger. I mean, I did try fitting that onto this before I inset. It's just a matter of getting it to the right point where it is actually designed to slide in so that locking tab engages. And that doesn't want to stay in the right spot while you're doing it, so you've got to keep messing about with that. It's a little bit frustrating, but you know, it's just one of those things. Now, if you do get this together and you get it locked in, and then you found that you've done something wrong, don't worry about it. I'll cover that off in a minute. There we go. Right, so that's locked in place now, and as you can see, the lock is working perfectly. Everything's engaged as it should do, so you should be able to... I'm going to have it unlocked. Pull the key out, and that won't come out now. It's fixed in there by that locking tab. Now, if you find you need to dismantle this, like because you know, you change bike but you keep the top box, that locking tab is there. So with a thin implement like this, what you can do is you can put your key in, or push it in all the way, and then just pull it out one click, and what that will do is it'll take the pressure off that, so you can then, I don't know if you can see this, you can just lever that out of the way and push the lock out, so the jobs are good. And so right, that's that bit done. On to the next bit. Now, the frustrating part about this whole kit is you find you know, parts that you would expect to be with this are not. They're in a completely different kit. It's like I discovered when I was fitting the rack on the bike. It had fasteners for the adapter plate for the actual top box to be fitted, but the adapter plate is in a completely different package, so it can get a little bit confusing. You have bits that you don't know what the fuck, because they don't apply to the job that you're doing, and this is the same. You know, this part is in a completely different package, as are all the you know, the actual fittings for the lock. Now I'm just going to have to do some consulting of the actual instructions, because I didn't get this far, because obviously I needed to show you how to put the lock together. So right, we've got the lock together. This flange, I'm not quite sure what we call it. It's plastic. This, by the way, it's some sort of alloy. I thought it was plastic at first, but it is some sort of alloy. This, I think, is just a spacer ring. As you can see, it's got a little groove in it there. You can see that, which corresponds with this tab here on the barrel. So that just pushes in, tight fit, onto there like that, and that's that bit done. So that's your lock coded to your ignition key, and it's like I said, you know, that's all put together now. It's all fine and correct. You've still got all these bits left over, springs, tumblers, actual tumbler springs. I mean, there's enough. I think there's something like about 5 or 6 tumbler springs left in that package. So you've got everything you need there to recode this lock again. And as I say, it's a little bit fiddly, but you can take the lock apart for recoding if necessary. I think you know, it's essential that you have the ability to do that, because you might have thought you've put this together properly and then found when you put it together that it doesn't work, so you have to take it apart again. But yeah, just keep those safe, and then if you decide to keep your top box when you swap bike or whatever, because I would imagine the top box itself is you know, a general item for several different models. It'll just be the way it fits on the bike that's different. You don't have to buy a new lock assembly. I mean, I've got no idea what they cost, but you don't want to be buying one if you don't have to. Right, so the next bit, we've got to put the clasp together. And this is the actual clasp mechanism that both fastens the box locked closed, and it also locks the box onto the bike. So I'm going to go and get that now, and we have to install the lock into it. Right, so this is the locking mechanism. This bottom half, right, no, this is the top. This is what actually, is it? Yeah, it is. This is what actually locks the lid of the top box closed. This bottom part here is what locks the clasp onto the bike, and I believe they're both actuated by this same lock here. So we need to fit the lock into this and assemble it. And as I say, I'm working from the instructions as I go along here, so there might be 1 or 2 cuts in this video that maybe are a little bit jarring. I don't know. Right, so that's locked. That's unlocked. We've got that little tab there sticking out, and that inserts into there like that. I don't think I really need that there. So we'll turn it over, and we've got to fasten that into place. Now in this kit here, hoping I've got all the bits. It looks like we have. And this this bag comes with your actual clasp mechanism. It's not with the lock, even though it's got lock components in it. And as I say, that's what gets a bit confusing about the whole thing. You'll often think, oh, there's bits missing, but they'll be in another box somewhere else, which I just think it's a bit odd because you know, these components are all sold separately. So it's like if you buy the rack, you're going to have the bolt for fastening the adapter plate on, but you don't have the adapter plate, and the adapter plate doesn't come with the bolts to fasten it onto the rack. So it all gets a bit confusing as you go along. Right, so we'll see with this. We've got a wide piece of metal there and a thinner bit there. From looking at the destructions, that goes on that way around, so it's flush with there, and that looks right to me. Now to lock it in place, we use this clip. Again, you see we've got that little cutout there, that corresponds with the same cutout that we've been working with on the barrel as well. And it's like a circlip really. It's, there we go. So your lock is now locked onto the clasp. Take the cat hairs and dog hairs away. Make sure we're in shot. Yeah, I'm not really geared up for this kind of photography, I'm afraid. So, you know, I apologise. So yeah, unlock, lock. Everything is working fine. As I say, that there's some cutouts on the bottom of this this metal housing that engages into. So that's good and solid. That's not coming out of there accidentally. Famous last words. And the lock's working. So next bit, I think we've got to put the actual tab. Just make sure the orientation's all correct there. Right. We're now working with these bits. I'm just hoping that, you see, that the problem is I've got to get in close so that I can pick the detail up. But that then means that I'm working in a very confined area, which leaves scope for stuff shifting out of the camera view. Right, so looking at this, I've got this component here, which I think is like a spring. The problem is I'm working from a PDF and we're like at page 11, but the key for what everything is on page 1. So that, I think, goes on there. Looking at the diagram, that goes on there like that. Oh, maybe it doesn't, because that's got, so it goes that way up into there like that. It does tell you to grease this first, so let's just pack a little bit of grease into that. I mean, it says grease, but it doesn't really show you where to put the grease. We'll get a bit of grease into that. I mean, it seems like a lot of grease, this, but you know, by the time this has spent a few years on your bike, some of that grease will have washed out, dried up. So it makes sense to have a reasonable amount on. So fit that on there like that. And then we need to fit the actual locking tab, which is this bit here. Let me just check the orientation. So just to put it on that way, so it looks like I'm going to have to turn the lock. Like that. That goes onto there. Again, we're working with that cutout. Then we've got a washer. And then we've got a C-clip. Right, I mean, I think I'm probably going to have to do this off camera because I can't keep it in camera shot and do it at the same time. It just needs such a lot of pressure on this. That I don't think I'm going to be able to keep it in camera shot while I actually fit it, and rather than struggling for an inordinate length of time in front of the camera, then having to cut it all out. We'll give it one last go. Oh, we're almost on. Hopefully that's in shot. So that's just shifted around slightly. Yeah, we've got to get that tab in there. So we can do that without lined up. Almost lined up there. Might just. There we go, we're in. Right, so that's your locking mechanism together now. Hopefully it all still works. There we go. So that's, I mean, it's quite a substantial locking tab, is that? We on. Quite a substantial locking tab. Looks pretty strong. And that's basically what makes the lid secure when you lock it up, and also makes the top box secure onto the bike when it's not attended. Right, so what we're going to do now is on Friday we'll have the fitting of the adapter plate and you know, just showing you how it all comes together. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you would leave a like, hype this video, and become a subscriber if you're not already a subscriber. There are other ways you can help me out via my Patreon page, PayPal donations, or by using the super thanks button down below. I'll be back tomorrow, so until then, ride safely and I'll see you soon.